AITA for telling my niece it's her fault that my horse kicked her? I, 27F, have a niece, 14F, who is my older brother's, 36M, and his wife, 34F, daughter. She's a very sweet girl and she loves my horses and the other horses I board, which are my friends. My brother and his wife live in the city, while I live in my uncle's ranch on my mother's side in a different state. My brother and I have different moms but same dad. They sent my niece to come stay with me for a few months, which I greatly accepted. She's been good and she calls her friends back at her home state and FaceTimes her parents once in a while. She's a great help with feeding my animals and my horses. The only problem is, she doesn't know how to ride horses and sometimes teases the horses. I have two very young horses, a filly and a colt, which are very excited horses, and I don't really allow her in the field with them, as they like to kick and buck even when people are around. And I have an old stallion, which was my first horse my uncle got me. His name is Rooster and he is 32 years old. That is my niece's favorite horse. She always wants to ride him, but I don't allow anyone to ride him and I don't ride him no more. He's very patient and kind, but he doesn't like anyone touching his back legs and his tail. When you walk behind him, he will kick, but when he knows you are there, he doesn't mind being touched back there as long as anyone approaches him in the front. Overall, he's a great horse. She will tease him with a lunging whip by tickling his back legs and his tail, trying to get him to kick. I have told her numerous times and warned her. She still continues to do it behind my back. Well, I told her to go get Rooster out of the pasture and into his stall. She went to go and get him and I heard a scream in the barn. I got over there and she was holding on to her leg crying in pain, while Rooster ran back to the pastures. I asked her what happened and she said Rooster had kicked her left thigh, and I asked her if she touched him on the back legs or his tail. She said she pushed him on his tail to get him in his stall, and that's when he kicked her and ran off. She started cursing about Rooster and doesn't want to be around him. I told her it's her fault, she provoked him and for not listening to me after so many warnings. I told her that bruise on her leg is a lesson now to be careful around bigger animals, especially ones that can kick at any moment. She can walk it off. And she called her parents after. They called me and told me that it was my fault for not supervising her and that they're gonna get her home. I told them everything but they won't listen, and my Sil told me I need to get rid of Rooster. I told her no and hung up. Now I am wondering, AITA? NTA 14 is old enough to take directions and warnings. You have told her several times not to do what she did. She didn't listen and continued to do it anyway. Rooster gave her a lesson in why she should listen to warnings, directions. I mean, if you keep telling a kid not to touch a stove because it's hot, and they don't listen and touch the stove and get burned, are you going to throw the stove out? To me, this is the logic of her mother. NTA. This wasn't the first time she touched the horse, and you have told her several times not to. So yes, it is her fault she got kicked. And if your brother, Sil, daughter aren't even living at your property, what right do they have to tell you to get rid of Rooster? I know who I'd be getting rid of. NTA. Weird that she wants to tease the horse, she seems a bit mean. What's up with that? NTA. My daughter was 4. She had been told numerous times to never approach the horse from behind. Especially, don't touch his back legs. He can't see you, because you're too short. She got kicked in the chest and literally flew about 12 feet. Landed on her back. Breath completely knocked out of her. Had to do the pull-up maneuver to get her to breathe again. I thought I was going to have to inflate her lungs myself with mouth-to-mouth for a split second. But she finally inhaled. She was lucky her lungs didn't collapse. She had a horseshoe-shaped bruise on her sternum, chest area for 2 weeks. I examined her on the spot to make sure nothing was broken. She got really lucky. She listened to me regarding large animals, livestock, etc. after that because she knew it was her fault. At 4 years old. So no, you are not the here. You warned her time and time again. Let her parents complain all they want. Tell them they are supposed to be parenting their child, and not coddling them when the child goes directly against something she's been told not to do. It's called actions meet consequences. They are very good friends. NTA. She's 14, which is plenty old enough to understand cause and effect and consequences. And you warned her multiple times. Personally, I'm not babysitting a 14-year-old, so if she and her parents are not ready to appreciate that all animals are, at their core, animals, which makes them unpredictable and dangerous when mishandled, she's not ready to visit without her parents to keep an eye on her. NTA. You told her multiple times not to tease the horse and let her know what the consequences would be. She's 14, not 8. She's old enough to heed good advice. With that said, I wouldn't let her interact with the horses anymore, at least unsupervised, because she's proved herself to be irresponsible. 14 is old enough to understand that an animal doesn't want to be touched on the back. She was provoking the horse. NTA. NTA. The brat was tormenting the animal, who was perfectly within his rights to tell her off. NTA. A 14-year-old knows not to play with fire. It's her fault she did this despite repeated warnings. NTA. You repeatedly warned your niece about the dangers of provoking the horse, and she didn't listen. It's unfortunate that she got hurt, but she needs to learn to respect the boundaries of animals and take responsibility for her actions. NTA. The first time my wife took me to meet her horse, he was being very sweet but also pushy. I brushed it off and let him do it. She told me very sternly that when our puppy does this, it's playful. When her Dane does it, it can be dangerous. But when a horse does it, it can be deadly, so it's always important to maintain boundaries so as to stay safe. Your niece acted recklessly and was lucky she didn't get hurt even further. NTA. No one likes to be teased. Why does a 14-year-old get a pass when teasing a living creature? She doesn't. I'd send her home and not invite her back. Esh. For still allowing her around the horse that you knew was likely to kick her. Yeah, she's 14 and you warned her, but you also knew she was still doing it and was like to get hurt. Soft YTA. A person who won't take safety seriously around horses should not be allowed around horses, especially ones known to kick. I grew up riding and several people I knew, including my own mother, died because they weren't as careful as they should have been. Do not let her back until she can prove she's responsible. You're both lucky she only got kicked in the leg. Honestly, I'm going to say YTA for not managing that situation better. If you know that this kid is not following the rules, you should have disciplined her earlier. Revoke her horse privileges. Tell her parents that she isn't listening, etc. It's not right to wait for the horses to be the ones to dole out punishment. Largely because if she had been hurt worse, it could have had dire consequences for the horse. Your words of warning to the niece were empty because you didn't follow through. Imagine this was a paying boarder or someone who wasn't family. I told the 14-year-old to do better, but then I sent her in with the horse that I know she was misbehaving around anyway, is not a good enough excuse. Emo. It would have been more appropriate if it was, I told the 14-year-old once. The second time I told her parents. The third time I forbid her from going around the horses anymore. She was explicitly forbidden. from being around that horse at that point. Man 14 is old enough to learn a hard lesson. It's also old enough to do chores around the farm without constant adult supervision. You, dear Redditor, are NTA. NTA. What the heck? My cousin was fortunate enough to get riding lessons when we were preteens. And my grandma always just had me tag along. I was never as involved with horses, but it is pretty well known you do not approach a horse from behind, let alone startle it in any way. Sounds like your niece needed that wake-up call. She wasn't respecting the horses, and that brought about a natural consequence. Sorry that Sil is going overboard. As long as niece is physically okay aside from a bruise. You did nothing wrong. 14 is plenty old enough to be unsupervised doing chores. You are definitely NTA. At 14 your niece is fully old enough to understand instructions and has to accept if she does what she is told not to, then she gets consequences. Running to mommy and daddy for her own stupid mistakes shows she lacks taking responsibility for her actions. Send her home, as she is not ready to be near horses. Horses are dangerous animals and need to be respected. 14 is old to learn that lesson. NTA. YTA. You sent someone you knew would tease a horse to that horse even without the kick that makes you an AH and responsible for the outcome. If you didn't know about the teasing, then maybe you'd be in the clear, but reacting to an injury by blaming the person who was hurt is kind of a dick move too.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.